Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh. Thank you so much for joining me again on Dukh Sukh. And today's show is pretty special because I have my first guest in the studio with me. I have Ronnie Rich, our fit banker.
Thank you.
Sat Sri Akal Ji.
Sat Sri Akal.
I have his wife, Dr. Ambika Sampat. Sat Sri Akal Ji.
Sat Sri Akal.
We'll talk with Ronnie and Ambika more soon. But just to recap why Dukh Sukh and what the show is about. For those of you that may have catched it last week, just a reminder, Dukh and Sukh just means pain to pleasure or pain to happiness. How do we get there? Why are we causing ourselves daily pain? Or why do we have so many challenges in our life? One way to observe this is the wheel of life, which I shared with you last week. It's just a wheel that you can take from the internet, and really it's just a representation of where your life is at right now. What are you doing? How much time are you spending in each of the key 4 areas of life? The example that we have shows more areas of life, but the 4 key ones are health, which we'll talk about today, which is with our guests, wealth, relationships, and spirituality. As we tackle each one in each of our shows in the coming weeks, we'll try and give you some tips and advice. So just to remind you again, how do you use the wheel? You literally put a target on the wheel of how much time are you spending or enjoying your life in each of the areas for whatever area that you're looking at. That will give you some perspective of where you spend most of your time and potentially the things that you say you want in your life and what's missing or why you're not there. It will give you some inkling of where you're overspending time or underspending time. So let us move on and talk to our guest in a moment, but think about 3 things in mind where the wheel is concerned. Usually the 3 things that give us the dukh, or things that we put off, are related to time. Mere ko wala time hai nahi. We always say it. We say it as an excuse. Money. Sar ko wale paise hai nahi. So again, that gives us another reason not to do the things we need to do. And then the third reason, which I think is the most important, is how much we value it. How important is it really for us to be doing things? And a prime example of that is our daily health. Most of us put that off until it gets to such a point in our lives that we have to do something about it. ਜਦੋਂ ਵਕਤ ਆ ਜਾਂਦਾ ਜਦੋਂ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਕੋਈ ਡਾਕਟਰ ਦੱਸਦਾ ਵੀ ਹੁਣ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਆ ਬਿਮਾਰੀ ਆ ਜਾਂ ਆ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਕੋਈ ਪ੍ਰੋਬਲਮ ਹੈਗੀ ਆ then ਫਿਰ ਅਸੀਂ ਸੋਚਦੇ ਹਾਂ ਵੀ ਮੈਂ ਪਹਿਲਾਂ ਕਰਦੀ ਜਾਂ ਪਹਿਲਾਂ ਕਰਦਾ. So we always kind of running away from our problems or our challenges thinking I'm okay. ਜਦ ਫਿਰ ਪ੍ਰੋਬਲਮ ਆਉਂਦੀ ਆ then we completely go the other extreme. So to give us one example of that, I've invited our special guest in today who will talk us through some of the challenges they had. And today we're going to focus purely on health. So welcome Ronnie again and Ambika.
Thank you for having us here.
Brilliant. So Ronnie, your story is quite unique. So as I understand it, you were doing what all of us do, working really hard, doing long hours in the office. And then what began to happen in your life?
Yeah, thank you. So I was living what I thought was the definition of success. You know, I was working career in finance and banking, and as a VP in banking, I was putting in or prioritizing work as this is the thing that mattered most to me in my life, and living that lifestyle of working long hours, work hard and play hard. What ended up happening is that I really, over a number of years, compromised or sacrificed my well-being. And as a result, I ended up piling on a lot of weight. I lived a very sedentary lifestyle, sat a lot, not a lot of movement, working at my desk, eating at my desk.
Kind of feels like you're describing me.
And working really long hours. And as a result, what ended up transpiring, while I thought that was the definition of success, who I ended up being was this fat banker. And I was 108 kilos.
Wow. And
I was about 30-something% body fat. And I had no idea, or I had a view that I'm just, unfair for me, unlucky me, I'm just saddled with this body and there's nothing I can do about it. No matter what I would try to diet or do a little bit of exercise, I couldn't shift it. And I was stuck. And I thought, well, it is what I have. I'll have to just live with it. But shortly after we got married, Ambika and I think 9 months into our marriage, we were really excited. We were expecting our firstborn. And we were 3 months pregnant, and it was Ambika's birthday. And so we went up to Edinburgh to the Fringe Festival to celebrate. And I thought, this is perfect. Life is perfect. What more can you ask for? You know, I have a beautiful job, great salary, great savings, beautiful new wife, and we have a baby on the way. And all I could think of was the future that we're going to have and create for this baby. And while we were there celebrating, Ambi's birthday and ready to announce to the world as we're at our 3-point mark, everything turned 180 degrees as we had a miscarriage.
Oh.
And we lost our little one. And that day, I remember for Ambi, it was really crushing. Yeah. And she, she was
such a painful, poignant moment, isn't it? Not just in your marriage, but when something like that happens.
Yeah.
You know, many of our viewers, we've gone through those experiences and we kind of just, pretend that nothing's happened. And really, it's some of the painfulest things that you go through in life.
Physically and emotionally.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So how did that transpire onto your your
well,
mindset,
for
your body?
that particular day and night, we have no family around at the time, and we're out of town, and we just I couldn't console Ambi, and I started getting stressed, and I, as as a husband thinking about the health of the baby, I began to question whether it's got to do with my male health. Like, is it something wrong with me that has led to the miscarriage? And that stress of whether it's got to do with me and being unable to console her led to, on the way back the next day, I got these random heart palpitations. And I thought, being a bit of a know-it-all and, it will be okay, or resigned about it, I just said, you know what, I'm going to do some deep breathing, I'll drink some water, I'll sleep it off, and I'll be okay in the morning. And to which Ambika just screamed. She goes, there's no way I'm waking up tomorrow having lost another one. And it really, really pierced me at that moment. I was like, wow, like for the first time, I got connected to that the way we think, the way we relate to ourselves, what we eat, what we do. We always are very ego-driven, and we think it's about me. I can do what I want. You don't tell me what to do. And in that moment, I actually got that we have to start to bank on our fitness because there are other people that bank on us being fit.
And that become quite poignant for you, Ambi, as well. Obviously, painful and stressful time that you were going through, and then sort of watching what Ronnie was about to go through. It must have been quite scary and painful in both measures.
Yeah, scary, I think, what most certainly is an understatement. Yeah. I think nobody ever prepares you, precisely to your point, because nobody talks about our issues. We're kind of raised in a society where it's like, don't wash your dirty linen in public.
Absolutely.
Log kya kahenge. And so we deal with health issues by ourselves. Miscarriage is a big taboo. Nobody talks about it. Fortunately, we're in a space where we're on personal development journey, where we have coaches we're working with that allowed us to deal with it. But seeing Ronnie's health breakdown, and he's somebody who just doesn't ever complain about stuff. Yeah. And for him, on this train journey back from Edinburgh to London, expressing this weird pain on his left side, all alarm bells go off.
Absolutely.
At the worst time ever, exactly. And you imagine worst case scenarios, and we're back in A&E after spending multiple nights already that week in emergency at the hospital, with now him plugged into all the tests and me sat on a chair. And you really get to a point where you feel helpless in every aspect of the way.
Did you have an inkling building up in some ways? Obviously not regarding the loss of the child, the loss of the baby, but more towards generally your health, where you kind of knew, look, I'm eating the wrong foods, where, what was your kind of dietary?
Yeah, my view at the time was that the only way to transform health was eat what you want, just so long you exercise more. And I thought the answer lay in exercise. Yeah. And a lot of the mainstream media is also pushing that message. And the corporates are also encouraging us. They're giving us gym discounts and memberships to join the gym, which is great, which is important, but exercise alone is not it, right? Exercise, if anything, is, they say about 20% of your results, your health, is down to exercise. I say it's actually 10% down to exercise, about 40% is down to nutrition, and 50% has got to do with the mindset. Yeah. You've got to have the willingness and the openness to say, this is not the future trajectory I want to head down if your health isn't doing too great, and that was me at the age of 33. Yeah. And the second thing is you want to know that there is a way to transform.
Yeah, because I think most of us are in this seesaw until now, I guess, that we would have thought, well, there's only two ways to do health, which is nutrition or gym. And most people then start off going, week 1, oh, I've lost a little bit. Week 2, I've lost a little bit more. Week 3, it's gone up. And I always usually say, well, that's because your fat has converted into muscle.
Yeah.
And by about week 4, most people have given up
Yeah.
because they're going, something's not working. And you're right, we either seesaw towards the gym or we seesaw towards the food.
Yeah.
And most of us challenge that because we live in such hard and fast lifestyles that, you know, cooking at home, and certainly at home, you know, when you're combining trying to work and trying to cook and look after a family, it's quite challenging at the times to do the right thing.
Yeah.
Because then you sometimes have where one member of the family certainly wants to be healthy, and then there's others that kind of go, well, you're doing that, I'm not.
Yeah.
So, but then what happened once you'd left the hospital then? What was kind of the
Yeah, so-
repercussions of that day in?
You know, leaving the hospital, I really got clear for myself. When I was there, when I was being checked on, when I had to go on for following days of checkups and blood tests and other stuff, I got really clear for myself. I'm continually asking my boss and colleagues at work, say, guys, I need the afternoon off. I got to go for another checkup, another review. And I just thought, why would I be doing this to my employers? And why would I don't want to be this as well for my family. I don't want to be someone as a family man growing up. And when we do try to have a kid again, which we now have 3 years on, I didn't want to be that person where the kids or my wife or, you know, family have to be nursing and taking care after me. And I've seen that in my family, where we have elders in our family, where we have pill boxes and we're reminding them, have you had your medication? Have you had this?
Yeah.
You were probably thinking to yourself, I'm too young.
Yeah, I'm too young. And I said, this is ridiculous. It's happening at the age of 33. And I was very clear that's the future I didn't want. And the second thing is, you know what? It doesn't take a rocket scientist to understand the human body, to understand food, to understand exercise, and to understand our mind. And we can transform that.
So talk me through it then. What were the proactive steps you started to take? And so was it starting the gym? How much weight did you begin to lose from where you were at?
Yeah, so first of all, I began a lot of research, a lot of reading about what worked, what didn't work. I tried many diets. And as you know, the word diet right now is slightly abused, and I'll talk to you about my definition of diet. But a lot of diets out there are what I call fad diets. So they're a little gimmick. They have you either somewhat suppress some food, so you are depriving your body, you're stressing yourself, and that's actually more mental torture.
Yeah.
And therefore it's not sustainable. That was the first thing.
Nor enjoyable.
So is
Not
that
enjoyable.
things when we go off and say, look, we're going on call it a juices diet, or we're just cutting out
No
carbs and
carbs.
sugars,
Yeah.
everything in one go?
Yeah, I heard of this thing called the
Yeah.
5-2 diet, heard of keto, heard of what's called the
Atkins,
General Motors diet, the Atkins diet, and you try all these, and they may yield some results for short term, but they're not sustainable.
Right.
And the second thing is some of the exercises out there, they have insane names attached to them as well, and you do these exercises, and if you're overweight, and I'm running a certain distance, my body is causing damage and injury to my joints, my knees, my shins, my ankles, and I'm thinking, I've got an issue with me. I don't realize I'm carrying a 30 kilo extra load on me that's impacting my joints, right? And so those were the things I began to research. I said, surely there's a midway, and surely there's something sustainable. And looking deeper into the research, I began to look at that, you know, in actually ancient Eastern science, in Ayurveda, we have learnt about body types. So in Ayurveda, we know of what's called Vata, Pitta, and Kapha body types.
Can you just repeat that again for the viewers?
Yeah, we got 3 body types in Eastern science called Ayurveda, where yoga comes from, called Vata, Pitta, and Kapha body types. And in Western bodybuilding, the Eastern science is about 5,000 years old. And in Western bodybuilding science, it's called ectomorph, mesomorph, and endomorph.
Okay.
Now, without knowing your body type and following what is the general information given out to everybody, you would really be doing a disservice to yourself and making your transformation harder. Because attached to your body type, you have a certain metabolism.
Yeah.
And our metabolism is how efficiently and how effectively does our body transform food that we eat into one of 3 things: energy, fat, and muscle, or what ratio of those 3 rather.
So how do you then work out what you are as your body type? Because, you know, most of us consider ourselves, I'm quite healthy, you know, I quite look slim when we look at ourselves in the mirror. And I guess this comes back to that analogy where, you know, you go out somewhere and you see somebody that, you know, like at work, let me use that as an example. When you're at work, you bring some donuts or whatever in, and you've got the skinniest person who will eat 1 or 2 and they still say slim. And I kind of look at one and go, yeah, I'm going to suffer with that later.
Not work, we're talking of home, right? Yeah. we'd both go out, eat a pizza, and she can eat more pizza than me, and then she's ready to bunger all night away, and I'm like dozing, I'm feeling lethargic, I'm in the nightclub and the music's blaring, I'm like dozing away, because it's having a sluggish impact on me.
Okay.
And we have different body types, and therefore the different impacts.
And I thought that, I just made a decision that just life is just unfair. Like, she's got a lucky body type, and I don't,
So is that what people would generally call the fat gene?
Well, that's what I thought. So because I looked at my dad, and I looked at his brothers, I looked at his family, and they're all overweight, and and she comes from an army family, and they're relatively fit, and so she's lean. So I thought, well, lucky her, I got the fat gene, right? So they used to call me, what do they call me at the wedding? Ladu, or so that was my nickname when I met the in-laws. That was what I was like at the wedding. Yeah.
Which he found out, of course, later once he had shed all the weight, but not during the wedding.
Nobody tells you when you're overweight, but then your nickname
you always
in the
think
background.
it's sweet and it's quite endearing, but you don't actually know the meaning behind it.
I know, but I think it's something worth actually kind of pausing and emphasizing on, which is we tolerate our loved ones being so unwell or so unfit. We're so used to treating people with pindi khalo to see, pizza khalo. It's a moment of celebration. Chalo ek khalo to see. We don't actually realize the real damage it's doing to our precious bodies, which all of us get one shot at really maintaining. And so as Ronnie put on all that weight, even seeing him at 108 kgs, I could see in comparison to other friends, he was large in proportion. But as they say, we tolerate it, we become blind to it. And, I can see his knees are hurting when he's running daily and the exercise is happening. And you kind of neglect it and you become ignorant and you don't imagine life could be any other way.
So how did you begin to, if Ronnie was at the gym, how did you begin to incorporate the food at home? How did you change, dal sabji or roti? Did you?
100% credit goes to him.
Yeah.
When he did his whole lifestyle shift, his not only with the exercise, but more importantly with the diet, and above all with the mind shift. That was such an abrupt shift into our day-to-day food, our nutrient, our intake. And initially for me, there was a huge resistance. I was like, there is no way I'm having chai without sugar. I can't imagine that, who has Indian adrakti chai without sugar? The thought of it was just, often in my case, I would reject stuff because it's unfamiliar. Nobody enjoys change. And I think the education that Ronnie started to build through Food Banker that we then expanded on, which was understanding why certain food types just don't serve our body, was easier to let go of stuff and then bring the food shift happen very naturally and gradually the more we start educating ourselves.
So where did you go for this education? Because I think that's the thing that most of us suffer now at home, of going, get the bit where you can go to the gym, but then come home and have the parothe.
Exactly.
Come home and have the roti.
I've earned that parotha. Exactly.
So how do we make that subtle shift? Is it like when many of us now go, we won't put ghee or butter on them? That's not enough, right? It's all about the absolute core ingredients, which I still don't think we're all educated enough to know what's really in our food, despite us saying, well, we don't get the stuff that's packet in the supermarkets and what have you. But even at home, when we're making things from fresh and from scratch, there's still so much more that I wouldn't genuinely know how much more I could do.
So
you go first and I can add to that.
So just want to add that I think we've grown up under a system, both at home as well as in the schooling system, where we're all given the same information, what we call informative health. So if you go today, if you're in the UK and you go to the UK, .gov.uk website, they have what's called the Eat Well Guide. And the Eat Well Guide is what's crept into our school syllabuses about being taught how to eat. And what we're being taught how to is this image of a plate, and that plate has various categories that you should have X amount of carbs or starchy foods, X amount of legumes and vegetables, X amount of meats, X amount of dairy, X amount of nuts, and so on. And so we're telling everyone the same information. But, if you look at you and me, we're different by height. We're different by our lifestyle. We're different what's called body types. Like Ambika have different body types, and that has a different metabolism. So each of us are so unique. Why then are we being given this single paintbrush approach and treatment and education? So the answer is education, and understanding that you're so unique that you want to distinguish, you want to discover education that works specific for you. Now there are many what I call pillars or variables that you want to understand around what is going to shift or transform your health and well-being. Some of the things that we look at is, like I said, body types.
Yeah.
So you want to ascertain your body type, and the way to ascertain it is, you know, you can go online and you can find a list of questionnaires, and there are questionnaires to tell you what body type you are, and some of them, the questions that you will answer are based on physical appearance, like, you know, the breadth of your shoulders versus your hips and so on. And Ayurveda uses 3 categories. It looks at the body, the mind, and the environment,
Okay.
and how you react to those. So you answer various questions, from thoughts to your dreams to how your sleep patterns are, and it's got an algorithm that will predict and tell you what your body type is. Based on that, we now know, look, certain foods, they just don't work for us. So that was the first thing I found. I said, look, Ambi, there's certain types of foods, they don't work for my body type. And these are what we call high glycemic index carbs,
Okay.
or foods that are rich in carbohydrates that create a blood sugar spike in our body. Now, we may have been eating them,
Yeah.
and many of you viewers might be watching and say, but hang on, we've been eating this for hundreds of years. Granted, we've been eating them for hundreds of years, but you know, the amount of labor expenditure that, say, my grandfather or my great-grandfather did in a day, he would walk 11 kilometers to work and back.
Yeah.
Right? For us to do 11 kilometers, we mean we have to start fundraising for that. It's like a big, it's a big do to walk 11 kilometers. Those guys did it every day just to bring bread and butter on the table.
Absolutely.
So they would spend what they took in.
So in other words, they were burning up the energy, and this
They were
comes back to
burning
the
up.
ex-
They were
comes
burning
back
up the
to
energy. They were
exercise.
working. They were working on farms. They were working, you know, in the pin to the amount that they spent in a day.
Yeah.
Very different to what we're doing in this urban lifestyle.
Yeah.
You know, we get up in the morning and we go from here. We sit at the dining table. We then sit in a car. We then sit in the tube. We then sit at our desk. I used to eat at my desk. So we have plummeted the amount of calorie burn or energy expenditure,
Yeah.
and our foods have gone from what we got fresh on the farm,
Yeah.
raw produce, to a lot of added sugar, added salt, and added preservatives.
So a lot of people may be watching this and thinking, well, Ronnie, you were a fit young bloke. Look at you now,
Yeah.
from the images that have been coming up on the screen.
Yeah.
So what would you say, though? Is it just about, you know, does age have a game into this? Or would you say, no, this is applicable to everybody?
No, I think, and I also think that a lot of the research can only tell you what it looks at historically. And research will say that metabolism slows down with age, which is not accurate. Your metabolism slows down with how you alter your lifestyle with the passage of time, called age. Right?
Oh.
So I went from somebody that was, we now have what's called bioelectrical impedance scale. So if you look at my before photo when I was a fat banker and 108 kg, 40-inch waist,
Yeah.
and 30-something% fat, when I got on those scales, I was 33, but it told me my biological age was 47.
Wow.
And, you know, fast forward 3 years at 35, or 35, 36, I got on those scales. When I'm 36, it's saying my biological age is 27. So we alter our
Wow.
body composition by knowing what contributes to it. You see, each of us, both of you and me and everyone watching, we're all made up of, we have a certain amount of fat percentage, body fat, certain amount of muscle mass, and then we have bone, and then we have our organs, and then water is retained within the molecules of those. So if you know that you're made up of those, we can then ascertain what foods contribute to, say, fat retention based on our metabolism. What foods contribute to muscle building based on our lifestyle, how we work out, and what we call macronutrients we take in. So you want to get the education of understanding that, and then you want to start to design your daily habits, and then design your life, and make this a lifestyle shift. And our body is just a scorecard. It's a byproduct of all those other habits.
Well, I've started to see life now as, you know, like you get the products and the products in a supermarket, and you get the GDA coding on the front that gives you a red, you know, I'm like, they should have one for the inside of your body as well, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Exactly.
Because those are the symptoms
Perfect
that
point.
come out.
Yeah.
Totally.
You know, those are the symptoms we're seeing that come out on, you know, on our physical plane
Precisely.
that we
Yeah.
don't know about. They're actually happening on the inside. Yet we consume products, you know, and just go, oh, that's not going to do me much damage. But only when you, like you say, a build up of time.
Yeah.
You know, then you make that realization of going, right, now I need to do something.
Yeah.
So as we've been talking about, you know, exercise and food is one element of it.
Yeah.
And, you know, I'm sure you're going to come on to it, Ambika, that in terms of mindset, it's the bigger piece of this, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely. And so if we almost picture a triangle and look at the widest bit, which is the base, that's where the majority of human beings focus for shifting their health, for losing weight, which is exercise and workout, exercise and food. But it's the grossest level. And what we often say is exercise really contributes towards 20% of it, diet maybe 30%, and the other 50% is mindset shift. And that is the next tier in that triangle, which is subtle. It's not as gross or as physical, but it really is what the mind can achieve, what the mind can perceive, the body can achieve. And when we start shifting our relationship to food, the context in which we relate to food or to exercise, our actions alter.
Because some of us have that challenge between the food is almost not consumed for what I call fuel or energy. It's almost becoming an emotional attachment.
Absolutely fulfilling on a desire.
That's it.
Rather than getting,
A
if this
relationship.
functionally is altering the impact it's having on my body, and therefore my ability for my body to perform a certain way, then that shifts our entire experience. And always what we got to remember is a lot of the education, or all the education we often have, is academic education, right? And it's brilliant, it serves us, but math, English, science, etc. will really only take us so far. And the whole livelihood or our well-being type of education really comes from the spiritual background. How are you studying, or what are you studying that enables you to understand how can we master at the physical level through mastering the mind, and how do you master the mind through mastering the soul? And when you really get to that top level is how we fully understand holistically to transform
Your body.
our body, our mind, our intellect. And I think one thing that you asked, and then Ronnie touched on around just age, and I know with a lot of the viewership that we have over here on this channel, my father-in-law and my dad are my most inspiring examples. One's 73, my father-in-law, and my dad is in his late 60s. And both have simply taken on the education. They're not so active on social media. They never go to the gym, or my dad maybe a few times. But through the simple education of understanding their body type and how different foods impact their body, understanding their fat percentage externally as well as on their organs through new scales we have now, that mindset shift has come. And so with the new diet and the new lifestyle, my father-in-law has reversed his diabetes, his cholesterol, his high blood pressure, stuff that the doctors said was chronic, so something they will have for a lifetime. All his medications have gone. My dad, he was a basketball champion in university, has a trunk full of trophies, and as life went on, still very, very active, but his belly was getting bigger. Right? And so he would still run faster than us. He could still, I think, do more push-ups than Ronnie, and even the Ronnie would not like to admit that.
Maybe
but he comes here for a holiday, and again, in a month, shifts his health so much, goes from wearing a double XL to a medium size in just a period of a month.
Wow.
And is standing in the mall wearing his new medium jacket, and he hasn't worn a size medium since college, which was 50 years ago.
Wow.
And that mindset shift, or the power of shifting your mind and then how you shift lifestyle habits, is so simple and yet so profound.
How does that impact females though? Because I can imagine, I'm not trying to be biased here or anything else, that men possibly enjoy going more to the gym. I'm not saying that women don't, because I love going to the gym as well. But from a older generation perspective, that are very set in their ways, they go to the Gurdwara, they go to the mandir, they cook food there, and it's almost ingrained in them. This is the way you cook, but this is the way we all have food. How do you begin to sort of work on that? Has that been something that your mum and your mother-in-law supported?
Oh, massively, and that's such a brilliant and such an important question. Ronnie, or any one person doing any lifestyle shift by themselves, only takes us so far. It's never sustainable. And there's a great African proverb, and we're both born and raised in Africa, so we use a lot of those quotes, which is, to go far, or to go fast rather, you go alone, but to go far, you go together. And what supported his transformation and then my transformation was in starting to cook foods that the whole family could eat together. But not only for us two, for any friends, any family visiting, they were eating our food. And so when people take on doing the challenges that we offer, aunties, grandmoms, wives who are cooking for multiple generations or cooking for their families or inviting people over, start adopting those new diets, start adopting those new lifestyles. Last week it was Ganesh Chaturthi. We had a friend who was hosting a big Ganeshi Puja and had our entire neighborhood coming. They messaged us and said, what are healthy foods that we can make? There'll be desi foods, your cholle, your rajma, your everything. But how do we cook healthy foods that will serve the guests and allow their bodies to be optimal after eating the treats that we're going to offer in the form of prasad?
So is that just about cutting down certain, noon veg masala, what's the shift within it, or is it the way we're actually cooking it?
Yeah, I could add to that. So what we want to look at, what we have available to us now, is we do have a lot of healthy replacements, right?
Okay.
So we're very conditioned to, say, having rice in a particular meal. Today we have alternatives like quinoa. We actually have things like mushroom rice, which is cauliflower rice, right? So we have multiple of those that we can replace the old ones. So what it is looking for the healthy alternative, and that's available. That's the first thing. The second thing is also looking at the way we prepare it. So the history of, say, frying is just like an easy, quick way to apply heat to food.
Yeah.
It's quite a lazy way to apply heat to food. And just from the way we do our tarka of the particular food, you could alter that. There are actually fats that are good for the body. They're fats that heal and they're fats that kill.
Yeah.
And we can replace the oils we use, like as an example, coconut oil is a great replacement to have versus some of the inferior vegetable oils, right?
Okay.
So we could use that to replace the tarka. Small changes, and also just increasing the amount of, say, vegetables and greens that we have in our food, having that be a larger portion by volume of our plate than, say, a lot of the foods that are have high glycemic index carbs in them, or over-processed foods.
And one point to add beyond the food aspect, which is when you talk about Auntie G's who go to Gurdwara, have their set routine, pick up their kids, look after in-laws, even introducing just walking.
Yes.
So after every meal, can you do a 10 to 15 minute walk?
Absolutely.
What does that look like? And we have a 2-bedroom apartment, and so we don't have a backyard, but we live along the river, and so we can go for a nice walk. And we have our 18-month-old son now, Kanaya. We take him in a pram and he goes for a walk with us. When family visit, they go for a walk with us after dinners. And so just incorporating that, that mindset, ki khana khao, and then go and burn it off.
Yeah, because that's the thing. Tora, if you introduce a little bit.
Exactly.
I'm not expecting everyone to, like you say,
overnight
to make a decision, overnight change their lifestyle, make a
Exactly.
decision to go to the gym.
Yeah.
And like you say, we know that's only a third of the challenge.
Precisely.
The other third is food. The big area that we want to talk about, which I know was almost a third as well, is the mindset, because my own experiences tell me when I get up, there's a huge difference some mornings when I say it's 5 a.m.
Yeah.
and it's raining and cold outside, but I'm still cool with that, and I'll get up, put my trainers on,
Yeah.
and out I go.
Yeah.
And then there's other days it's 5 o'clock in the morning, I look outside and go, I just don't want to do it.
Yeah.
And that's the whole thing around motivation, right?
Yeah.
What really drives you and how important it is depending on the activities you're doing.
Yeah.
And the biggest shift in me, I find, is if I know there's an event coming up, I've signed up for a marathon or a race, like we've got the Sangat 5K coming up, so hopefully we're going to see a lot of you out there.
Yeah.
Then you're a lot more motivated because you're doing it with other people, right?
Yeah.
And I've always had a personal trainer which has helped me along the way.
Yeah.
And then there's times where you don't have anything in the diary.
Yeah.
And I find those are the days are the toughest, right?
Well, so I'll just add to that. It's what we call, psychologically, you need to have what's called a greater why, or get connected to your dharma, right? Your Japanese term called ikigai. So how we want to have conversations with Auntie G's and Uncle G's and Baba G's that are watching this is I had to sit down and if there are any people that are my age and you're watching this with your elderly parents or elderly parents, you're watching this, I invite you to look at your role and your purpose in life has still got 100% of it to go. And I had to have a conversation with my dad to say, look, Dad, none of us have any kids. And I'm going to invite you to look at recreating why you're here. I never got to meet my granddad because he passed away of a lifestyle disease. He passed away of diabetes. And I sat my dad down and I said, look, looking at your body composition, looking at your health issues, which you've had from your 50s right up to the age of 70, the trajectory doesn't look healthy. So we want to have a serious conversation. You want to ask yourself that this body, this vessel, this vehicle, shifted from one to please to one that has purpose. And we want you to create something as an empowering context. So for him, I was like, Dad, I want you to create that, you're going to be a granddad. Be around for that. And create the body and the mind to say, you know what, I want to be there for my grandkids' graduation. I want to be there for his wedding. And I want to be there not on a wheelchair and unwell. Or I want to not be able to attend the wedding. But you want to be there fit and active and have that daily as something. And think of that at your 5 a.m. in the morning.
Because that becomes most people's mind, be milestones. And every dad, बच्चे बच्चे भी होंगे,
हाँ
I
जी.
want to be there.
Yeah.
Exactly.
When the kids are doing something, I want to be there.
Yeah.
But they say they want to be there, but they never take on the consequences of the lifestyle they have now
Precisely.
to think about for that time to come.
Yeah.
You know?
And I think that's such an important point. What we also see is beyond just looking at, I guess, the parents' generation, even our generation or generations that are younger, our body appearance plays such a key role in our confidence, in how we get into relationships,
Yes.
in how we relate to ourselves. And ultimately, it really is how we love ourselves. And the more we can love ourselves, the more we get to love our body.
Yeah.
And I think that's such a tight bond in relationship. And the more we start to love our body, the more we start treating it as a vehicle, the way we sit in our car and drive from A to B, and it needs the fuel, it needs the energy, it needs the engine in an optimal condition. This vehicle we have, this body, to fulfill on our dharma, on our purpose, loving it efficiently, so it gets through university, college, gym, business, career, mission, profession, kids. It's all dependent on our ability to respond. And if that self-love isn't there, then you wake up at 5 a.m. and it's like, ugh, I'm going to snooze and go back to sleep, or I'm going to add some sugar in that tea, or it's okay, I'm going to have 5 paranthi and we'll worry about it tomorrow. And so I think that self-love piece, not in a way which is just, shallow and us being self-obsessed. It's really coming from a very spiritual place, which is truly getting that I'm not the body, I'm not the mind, I'm the limitless soul. And when we get connected to that pure consciousness, the love that connects us all, then that's a powerful place to motivate us.
Absolutely. So with the exercise that comes as part of that, so I know when I first started running, it wasn't I just put on my shoelaces and I could do it, because I'd gone from 16, 17, left school, as you say, been in the office myself, and then all of a sudden in my mid-20s is when I discovered I want to run again. And I attempted to, run my first 5K, and we've got one coming up this weekend, which we're really excited about. So, it's the Sangat, a run with Sangat, on the 30th of September at the Handswood Park. I hope many of you will join us. But if you've never run, if you've never got off the couch, now's your time to get some advice. So, Ronnie, you went from possibly doing nothing to doing everything. How would you say to people to prepare for Sunday? Mentally, I think, more than the physical, because we know, 5K's just under 3 miles. So we know it's doable.
Very doable.
How do we keep the for some people that have never walked that distance
Yeah,
every day?
what I'd recommend is, between now and Sunday, you can just begin by going for some casual strolls or walks. Secondly, on Sunday, don't relate to this as a competitive race where you're concerned about being judged or that you'll be pressurized to run at a certain pace or level. You want to go there knowing that this action is an investment in me, in my health, in my well-being. And simply going to walk, to jog, run if you already want to, or a mix of them is perfectly fine. And doing it as a community, we always say any transformation begins by altering the environment. So if you're sat in front of the couch, swap that for the outdoors. Secondly, altering the community. If you're surrounded by people that are going for eating out, drinking, loads of sweets, swap that with, or start to hang out with people. I'm not saying ditch your friends, but try to find groups and communities where they are into a little bit of outdoors and activity. And the third thing is habits. So daily habits, from food habits to activity habits to thought habits like meditation, because our well-being is the multiple pillars. It's not just exercise, food, it's also our sleep, our thoughts, our breath, everything that comprises our well-being.
And I think it's important to highlight that anybody is capable of doing anything. Nobody is any fixed way of being. You could be whichever health shape you're in, but the moment your mind gets that I can transform this now, the universe around you is going to start shifting, and all access and opportunities will start showing up because you've chosen to transform it in the moment.
Absolutely. And if you need help and advice or a bit of understanding of how do I start this journey, well, as we said, we've got the Sangat 5K run this weekend, and if that's not your sort of first point of call to give it a go, then get in contact with us. Myself and the team here would love to be able to advise you on what you can do. Going back to then kind of going out and about, how does that work? When you go to a restaurant, is it kind of a minefield of what do you order, or do you now tend not to eat as much out?
So I think now it's become very simple. I'll go back to when we just started. The lifestyle shift, there were certain obvious things that we couldn't have. So I'm gluten allergic, and again, that's a byproduct of very poor choice of lifestyle growing up. You know, not having my vegetables, always throwing it away when mom and dad weren't looking, and knowing that I couldn't have the rotis and naans was, I think, in some way helpful. But then there was rice consumption. There was eating stuff that was just, you could see the layers of oil on it. And being more conscious of how can I have more greens now? How do we cut out Coke? I still live on Coke. I would have Coca-Cola every day. Swapping that for Coke Zero, or having lassi or something else instead became a very, very quick shift the more I got the education. Again, choice of restaurants shifted from places that were just filled with oil to healthier salad, fresh fruit options. So what do you know has just been chopped very recently or on that day off, rather than something that's been sitting on their counter for days, you know, in like tons of preservatives just so it stays. So I think healthier foods, fresher foods, foods that you know will not only have less calories, because counting calories is very misleading and only goes so far, but knowing it's going to serve your body in a better way.
You want to ascertain is that there are certain food types that are just not going to serve you. And it all begins by education. And we always hear this thing that knowledge is power. So having a little bit of knowledge about you, which now we have the tools and devices to say, you know what, I'm 30-something% fat. And optimally, I should be about 15% fat. So I have extra fat. So I'm going to avoid those foods that contribute to fat. Now, the old thinking was fat makes you fat, which is not true. Carbs make you fat, carbohydrates, right? So how can we just start to just eliminate those? And one of the biggest ones that is hidden in almost all our foods is sugar, right? So that's just a starting point. If there was one gift I would like to leave you guys with is try to cut out sugar. And many people hearing this might think, okay, in my chai, instead of putting 3 teaspoons of sugar, I'll only put 1. That's not the sugar I'm talking about. That one you definitely want to discontinue to 0.
Sugar.
But there's sugar in a lot of things. There are also naturally occurring sugars, like in fruit juices. You know, a lot of the fruit juices, we have the fibers removed. So what you get is basically sugar water. All right. There is sugar added to your bread. There is sugar added as well to milk. There's sugar added to a lot of kids' foods. There's sugar even added to your chili sauces, which is surprising. Just
and
the
ketchup.
The ketchup, the ketchup and the chili sauces and the pickles, because scientifically, the food industry identified that the more sugar we add to there, the more hooked we get onto it.
Absolutely.
Right?
So how do we, as say a regular viewer watching, if they wanted to know more information, and as we said, look, on the government sites, there's the Eat Well slides, and that's more informative. Where do we go for this transformative list of foods? Then where could we go and get this information that helps us understand what's really in our food and how to cook at home better?
Okay. So what you can do is there are now a number of transformative health coaches in the space, like as we coach. So, you know, free for people to approach us if any queries, or through the channel they can call in and, you know, we can do a Q&A session with them if need be. But what you want to identify, today we actually have technology. We have apps that can actually scan your food. So when you enter your food, it gives you a breakdown of what it's made up of. So, you know, get somebody to download the apps. There are a number of apps which you nutrition apps. There's one app called MyFitnessPal, and we all have a smartphone nowadays, and literally from scanning a barcode on a package of food, it will tell you this has 13 grams of sugar, this has 35 grams of sugar, and you can make a wiser choice just there and then. Right? So we have the knowledge now in our pocket on our smartphones, and we can find multiple programs that will what we call flexible dieting. So it's molded and designed around your lifestyle and those 5 pillars that we spoke about.
So how long should it roughly take if there was somebody new was coming to you as a client that said, look guys, help me out, I want to be able to lose weight, I want to get into the gym. How much time would you roughly say that's needed?
Well, I say you get to learn the whole education and science. It just takes about 3 months, 90 days, right? And the reason we do it in a compressed time frame is because psychologically, if we were to speak to any of you and say, listen, for life you have to discontinue this, you might already be discouraged. But if you know that I'm doing something for 90 days, a finite time period is slightly encouraging for the mind, which says, you know what, 3 months of my life, I could give it a go, right? I could give that a try.
Absolutely.
So a short-term program that gives you the education. But over that time, what's happening is we're not doing food suppression, but we are rewiring neuronally, we're altering your mindset relationship to food. So we have certain cultural relationships to foods. We have certain emotional relationships to foods. We have certain, well, we've always done it this way, therefore my grandparents did it, I should continue to doing it, right? So we're hooked on a lot of the herd mentality, which is doing what everybody did. But now we've reached a point where lifestyle disease is actually the biggest killer. And in the South Asian community, it really is impacting a lot of us from a younger age. You know, we're having heart disease in our 20s and 30s. And that's not necessary. So, you know, it's an invitation to the elder generation, to the younger generation to say, now's your chance to be leaders, to be the change you wish to see in the world. And it just starts by transforming you.
And it's...
Sorry, go on, Ambika.
One quick one. So just as a key takeaway from there, to highlight it's not suppression and it is sublimation. So how do you...
Substitution.
Substitute what you are having, but sublimation to a higher perspective, a higher, whether it's a food, exercise, workout type that really is serving your body rather than causing more damage.
Because that's the difference, isn't it? Because a lot of us will, like you say, exactly that, the thought of going, I know I need to start a diet, or I know I need to cut back on certain, but we just won't do it until and then we keep looking at milestones and go, New Year's coming in 3 months, I'll do it then.
Yeah.
You know, whereas I guess my invitation to you right now is 1st of October is next Monday, you know, so take your time out this week, the last week of September, and, you know, why not set yourself that challenge? And we're here to support you. We're here for another 8-9 weeks. So more than happy to coach and guide you to having the body that you truly desire.
Yeah, I just want to add to that so that you have some real incentive of what practical timelines are. My transformation from 108 kilos down to 76.5 happened predominantly, the bulk of which happened in 5.5 months. You know, we have images of some of our participants. As an example, Simran, she lost 15.8 kilos in 90 days, and she went on to lose up to 24 kilos and then went on to do something totally outside her comfort zone, which was take on Mount Kilimanjaro and summiting Mount Kilimanjaro, right? Now, this is somebody who was 113 kilos from her teenage years, in her 20s. Her parents, her community, her society thought, well, she won't change. And they may have had lean body and lifestyle, but they didn't realize that she has a different body type. And her taking on this education, Simran began to implement the small changes, removing what didn't work for her, and she causes these magical results. We also have medical professionals who are busy serving humanity, serving the public in their roles, working long hours, but that stressful role has an impact on their own well-being as a doctor. And we have doctors who have done our program as well, and some of the results you'll see is like Dr. Sijo Parkatil. He was 4.5 months predominantly, he lost 53 pounds, right? Wow. My old man, he reversed his high BP, high cholesterol, and he lost initially 14.5, went up to about 17 kilos lost at the age of 70, right? So at 71, the medical doctors are asking him, please discontinue your statins, your high BP medication. But when he got in the 50s, all they said was, take this dawa
for the rest
and
of your
stay
life.
on it till we tell you to stop, which basically goes on till you're in a coffin. And offering that education to dad is just, you know, it's, to me, that's been the biggest privilege, to be able to offer that to our elder generation.
And that's the shift that you guys have made, that if you've got doctors taking on your advice, and you've got you know, a shift in your own family, you know, that's your biggest aspiration,
Massively,
I guess. You know, that's your endorsement right there, that anyone can actually do this if there's a mind shift there, you know, to access to allow you to have the motivation to do it.
Precisely. And I think even for us individually, but also as new parents, we now see our son who's 18 months and we get to carry him, we get to play all over, we get to run around the home, and we've had him later than our parents had us. So we're having kids now in our mid-30s. It's our commitment, it's our responsibility to be fit as he's growing. It's the biggest disservice to him for us to start taking our health for granted, neglecting it, and thinking, why going by today? We should be fine. You know, for now, let's not worry about tomorrow or next year or the years to come. Those kids count on us to raise them with the values to become independent individuals. And so we owe it to ourselves, because we know they bank on our fitness, to really be the best version of us.
Absolutely. And one of the things I kind of advocate to clients that come to me is find a hobby that suits you. If it's not the gym, look outdoors, whatever your passion is that gets you moving, that gets you active, get into it. And then, as Ronnie has sort of said, find an event that's appropriate for you, you know, and that
Start,
can be
yeah.
start small
Yeah.
if you have, start small or start in little increments,
Yeah.
and then start to build it up so that you are taking on a huge event. And I remember the first time when I thought about the marathon, you know, I was like, I don't know how I'm going to do this.
Yeah.
And the more I was trying it, because I was overthinking it, I was causing myself injury. So I remember the first time I went to train for it, I caused myself an injury, and it was actually my mind saying that I didn't want to do it. The second time I read up a little bit more, got a nutritional book, and I absolutely enjoyed it. You know, I did it all on my own, but again, it was only half the body that was being used because I was using my legs.
Yeah.
I was controlling what I was eating, but I was still having my treats.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I did it, and I was like, I had a fantastic body for it.
Yeah.
But then I went to do it a third time, and that was a lot tougher because I was sort of almost fooling the body, going, you know, the muscles have memory,
Yeah.
and my body was just saying, yeah, I know how to do this. And I was still eating bad food.
Yeah.
And that was when it became, you know, more noticeable to me. I really need to do something here. It's not just about I'm going to the gym or changing food. It's also the way I was thinking about running.
Yeah.
And that's the difference when people hit, as they call it, the wall, don't they? And then in running terms of going, that's the difference between what takes you over because your motivation either kicks in or you want to give up.
Yeah.
You know?
And that's where we really want our focus is around education. And if you can alter your relationship to foods and you can alter your relationship to your body, then you will begin to alter the actions that you see available to you. And you know, our mission is to see a world, create a world free of lifestyle disease. If you think about lifestyle disease, the answer to solving that is in the name itself. It's lifestyle disease. So if we alter the lifestyle, the disease drops off. And so we could disappear lifestyle disease through education, not medication, right? And our commitment is to do that in my lifetime to transform 1 billion lives, right? We can do that today with TV, with social media. And so the invitation is leaders that are up to saying, you know what, I'm going to be the inspiration in my community. And spreading good health can be more contagious than bad health. So.
And I love your example because you have the awareness and therefore you're building on it from one marathon to the next to the third. Often most of us don't actually have the awareness. So while Ronnie's doing his health transformation, he's always been physically fit, right? It was the choice of lifestyle that therefore had the body put on weight. But there was some knowledge somewhere about how do you shift it and the real hunger to constantly want to transform it once he put his mind to it. I think I was in a completely different camp where I had the benefit of a very workable body type and therefore could eat whatever I wanted. It wouldn't show on my body. But going back to mental blocks, you know, things that happen to us growing up become such subconscious blocks that we don't realize how they alter our relationship to exercise or adventure or sport. So growing up, we're in high school races. It's you know, our annual sports day. We're doing a 100-meter sprint, and there's, I don't know, 5 of us in the race. The sports teacher says, go, everybody starts running. And I turn around, look behind, and behind me is the only one person who's, you know, fairly unfit, quite overweight kid in class, and I'm the second last. And instantly I have it that if it wasn't for that person, I would be the last person. I suck at sports. I'm 10 years old, but somehow I make that subconscious decision.
Absolutely.
I'm never going to do adventure. I'm never going to do sport. And I go on never doing it, hiding in the toilets from sports days, never doing sport, never doing adventure. Kids are out there. And the Fit Banker, when we take on, you know, transforming our health and our relationship to our body, identifying that mental block that a 10-year-old kid made, and I've let it ruin my life or rule it for 2 decades after that, is crazy. And the minute we make that shift, we're climbing Mount Kilimanjaro, we're doing Tough Mudder, we're doing treks every month. Kanea is on our back doing all the treks with us. We're doing 10K runs. And so to everybody watching,
my 73-year-old dad also summiting mountains with us.
Wow.
Exactly. So however you relate to your body as something that can or cannot do it, or someone who can or cannot do something, I promise you that is simply a mental block. And in any given moment, you can transform it. I know that from first-hand experience, and we coach so many people that get to remove those mental blocks, and you discover yourself newly.
Absolutely, because half of the battle is ourselves of going,
Yeah.
I can't do it. And I remember that's where I started when it came with running, that I didn't enjoy cross country at school because it was cold and winter, so I always remember just being a small kid and freezing. I always felt like I walked more of it than I actually ran it. So I had this thing inside of me that said I don't like it. And then all of a sudden, I had my 2 nephews that lived with us at the time. They were 3 and 4, and you're right, kids gave you such a buzz and excitement that you kind of wanted to join in and have fun with them. But what I was reading was I couldn't keep up with them.
Yeah.
And they were my nephews. I was like, I can't keep up with them. And that's when my own transformation started, because I was like, I want to get fit again. But I can't underestimate how much support and help you do need.
Yeah.
And that's one thing I would put across of, you know, we might turn around and say, no, you know, why do you need a personal trainer? You know, why do you need anybody to help you? But it's so important, and I guess your events are just as important for the public, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, totally. And you know, you want to alter that environment, community, habits. So get into that community. Start this Sunday. What is it called?
Run with Sangat.
Run with Sangat. Run at sangat.org. Is that where the details are?
That's where it is.
Yeah.
Yes, that's right.
Run at sangat.org. It'll be awesome to have loads of people there this weekend, and let this be your start. You know, in October there's a big campaign going across the UK called Stoptober, where you learn to stop something. Stop sugar, stop smoking, stop drinking. So stop some of those bad habits and start to begin to live your life to its fullest.
And on that note, I'm afraid we're going to have to stop this interview. So it's been a wonderful time
thank
having
you
you guys
so
in the
much for
studio.
having us.
It's been a
Thanks a lot
complete
for
pleasure.
having us.
I hope the viewers at home have also enjoyed it and you've taken a lot from it. And all I'm going to say is look forward to seeing you again on our next show of Dukhs. Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh.